Welcome back to Face the State. I'm Ariana Bennett. Thank you for staying with us. Well, it's now legal in Nevada to use marijuana recreationally, but it is not legal everywhere you go or in every circumstance. And there are some limits that you'll want to know about so you don't get in trouble. Reno Police Deputy Chief Tom Robinson is here now to talk about all the rules for us. Tom, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so to start off, what are you anticipating in terms of the need for more law enforcement activity when it comes to marijuana? Are you expecting it to be an issue at all?
Some of the things that we are learning from the other states that have legalized it is that certain crimes have gone up since they legalized marijuana. So we're concerned about that. We're paying attention to it. It's something we will be watching over the next few months as this experiment or this new legalization kind of plays out.
What kind of issues have they seen?
It's wide ranging. It's everything from increased hospital visits, accidental ingestions, children exposures, and then residential robberies, DUIs obviously, and that's probably the biggest concern that we have is the DUIs.
Okay, so with all of this happening, are you guys preparing for this in any particular way, or you just kind of wait and see?
Over the last several months, I can't give you an exact time frame, we've been retraining most of our staff in field sobriety testing for drug impairment. All of the officers are trained in alcohol detection, and they also get drug detection also, but we've just been doing some refresher training in the drug detection. What do
you look for in a driver who's under the influence of marijuana?
Well, probably the obvious one is if they roll down the window and the smell comes out. And then we look certain clues in their eyes, speech patterns, those kind of things. And then some of the tests are very similar to tests you see with drivers suspected of alcohol impairment. We'll put them through a series of field tests, some walking tests, some physical tests, touching the nose. There's an eye test also. And then to confirm the suspicion, we'll have them submit to a blood test, which is the evidentiary test.
Okay, and there is a legal limit, right?
There is, yes. I'm going to get this wrong because it's very technical, but it's 2 nanograms per milliliter of blood for marijuana, and then it's 5 nanograms per milliliter of blood of marijuana metabolite.
Okay, so that's really hard to understand in terms of, it's not like alcohol, right, where you can say X number of drinks because marijuana can be measured in so many different ways.
Right.
But do you have any kind of approximation of how much someone would have to consume in order to be over the legal limit?
I don't, and I haven't seen any studies that have done nationwide. As you know, marijuana is federally illegal, so it's not legal for people to test it. So I haven't seen any research that says smoking 1 joint will cause your blood level to rise this much.
Okay, so then the advice has to be, if you're going to use this, just don't plan on driving?
That's the best advice to give, yeah. I'd also give that advice to people who want to go out and consume alcohol or even use prescription drugs. Always the best advice if you're going to go out and have a good time is to have plans for someone to drive you or to use a ride-sharing service or local cabs and that kind of thing.
Okay, and the penalties are they the same for drinking and driving?
Yes, they are.
Okay. All right. Now, other things, though, I mean, just basic laws, people aren't even allowed to buy it legally everywhere. There's a limited number of places where people can buy it. So let's get to that.
We're in what's called the Early Start program right now. The state has allowed the existing medical marijuana establishments to apply for license to sell recreational marijuana, and we have 4 of those in the city of Reno. So a customer can visit one of those to purchase up to an ounce of marijuana or up to 1/8 of an ounce of marijuana concentrate.
Okay, and those are the only places you can go. So if someone is trying to sell you marijuana, even though it's legal to use it, if it is not one of those dispensaries, at least for now, that's still illegal.
Correct. Yes, it would still be illegal.
Okay, what about growing it yourself?
So the way the law is written currently, people are allowed to cultivate their own marijuana, but they can't do so if they live within 25 miles of a retail establishment.
Okay. So that's basically all of Reno.
It's probably 90% of Reno.
All right. So
yes.
Chances are, if you were watching this, you probably can't grow your own unless you're a medical patient?
There is an exception for medical marijuana card holders, and that exception says that they can grow their own if none of the dispensaries sell the particular strain that they need for their condition.
Okay. All right. What about where you can use it? Where is that allowed?
The only place it is allowed is in a private residence.
Okay, so you can't do it in a park, you can't do it in your car?
Yeah, this is the thing we want to make sure that people understand. You can't smoke or even consume an edible in a bar, in a casino, walking down the street, during a special event like Hot August Nights or Street Vibes. And you can't even, obviously in a car as well.
Okay. What's the penalty if someone is caught using it in public?
It's a $600 fine.
Oof. And is that
Yeah.
first offense?
It is.
Is
yes.
that consistent every offense, or does it
Yes.
go up after that?
It goes up every offense after that.
Okay, so definitely don't want to be doing that.
Right. And then people should be careful with how much they possess as well, because if they go over the ounce limit, then that rolls right back to regular possession of controlled substance laws, and those are felonies.
Okay. Now you have to be 21 to buy it, so it's similar to alcohol. Is it similar to alcohol in that if there's a minor, someone under 21 in possession, is it an MIP in the same kind of way?
There's different rules about how minors can possess it, and they're complicated not complicated, but there's even more exceptions if the person under 21 is a medical marijuana card holder as well.
Okay, so if someone is under 21 and they're caught using it even privately, that's illegal?
Yes.
Okay, so no teenagers.
And there's also some laws that criminalize if you're over 21 and you give it to someone under 21 or under 18 as well.
Okay, and there's some other restrictions also. You're not allowed to endanger your child while under the influence of marijuana. What does that mean exactly?
Probably the best example would be driving in a car with a juvenile if you're under the influence of marijuana, or if you are tasked with taking care of a child and you're under the influence of marijuana and you are unable to care for the child because of your impairment.
Okay, and then the other one is possess a firearm. So is that if you are under the influence of marijuana, you can't have it on your person?
You can't have any kind of possession of a firearm when you're impaired. And that goes for alcohol as well. So what they did was they added marijuana to the crime of possession while intoxicated. So obviously if you have a firearm on your possession, you can't possess it when you're intoxicated. And then there's some gray area around whether you can possess it in your home. I mean, if it's locked up in a case or something, you'll be fine. But
so you can still be a legal gun owner, you just can't be carrying.
Absolutely.
If you're under the influence. Okay.
Correct.
All right. Now, this is important. Just because it's legal does not mean it protects you from if your workplace doesn't allow it, right?
That was one of the provisions that the state created in the law, was that even though it's legal, employers are still allowed to dictate what you can do in the workplace. So they can, any employer can create rules that say that you can't be impaired, and they can terminate you for it if they so desire.
Right, and it is still federally illegal, so if you work for a federal job, I imagine that's not going to fly.
Yeah, that won't work. Also, because it's still federally illegal, you can't take it across state lines, or you could face federal prosecution for that as well. And then there's also some impacts to people in federally subsidized housing. Although I don't know what those are off the top of my head, my recommendation would be for people who live in federally subsidized housing to look into that before they decide to use while they're at home, if their home is federally subsidized.
Yeah, good idea to make sure you're on the right side of the law. Now, we've just got about a minute left. So what advice do you have for people who are considering using marijuana recreationally? The
best advice I could give would be to be respectful of others and be responsible about it. What I mean when I say respectful of others is don't use if it's going to attract the attention of your neighbors. They might not want to smell the odors that are emitted from your use, so be respectful of that. And then when I say be responsible, what I mean is prepare for the hours after you consume, especially if you need to move around. Get a designated driver, do all the other things we talked about earlier with a ride-sharing service or a cab and those kind of things. We don't want people's fun to impact others. And our biggest concern is a crash involving an impaired driver that impacts other people's lives.
Right. Now, with the neighbor example too, it is legal to smoke it in your, or use it in your, on your private property, even if
Absolutely.
they can smell it.
Absolutely.
They just might not like it.
They might not like it, they might complain, they might call the police or the code enforcement to look into it. And so there's ways around that.
Yeah.
Do it when they're not home, or just don't attract their attention.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, Tom, anything else before we go?
No, that's all.
All right, thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you.
I sure appreciate
Appreciate it.
Well, that is it for this episode of Face the State. But for more information on all of this or to see past episodes, you can just head to our website. That's ktvn.com. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll see you next week.